All right, so here we have a brain. Now this is not a human brain, of course, but this is a sheep's brain. Now their brain is nowhere near the size of ours. However, they do share some of the same anatomy. So right here, these two things right here are the optic tracts to their eyes, just like we have it. And here's also the optic chiasma. Right here, they also have what's the ending of the spinal cord. This thin layer around this, which is this layer that's right here, this is going to be the meninges, which is made up of 3 layers. This is also the dura mater. So let's try to go ahead and take this off. So especially when coming to college, I had to get a meningitis shot. This is the thinnest layer. This is the layer that surrounds the brain. So remember, your brain controls a lot of different functions of your body, including hormones, muscle contractions, even things that you don't control like your digestion and your adrenaline glands. You do not control those. Those are controlled by your autonomic nervous system. And so if these are to become inflamed or they were to get damaged, they can cause a lot of issues or pressures on the brain, and it can cause other things to happen. So, it also can cause death. So it is very, very pertinent that these stay very healthy. Also, to make sure that nothing happens to these membranes. So let's see if we can get these out in one whole piece. So do know that there is a central sulcus, which is this deep groove that's on the medial side here, or this longitudinal fissure. The falx cibri is going to be this portion right here, is this thick portion that's going to line that fissure. And these are going to be sulci. So these little dips or deviations. Let's see if I can make one flex. There's another layer here. All these little cracks are going to be your sulci. See if I can finish peeling this off. And that came off beautifully. So this right here, this portion right here is going to be your falx cibri, and that is going to essentially help separate the 2 lobes here. So here's this is your right lobe, and this is your left lobe. Let's cut these in half, which this one had a little bit of bleeding. That's actually blood that you're seeing there, or clotted blood. So let's give this a cut in half, and let's take a look. So let's take a look here. So this portion right here is going to be called the cerebellum. It's also called the tree of life because hopefully you can see that the inside actually looks like a tree. This region of the brain is going to be responsible for fine motor movement. So just being able to do my hand like this, no trembling. It helps me be able to grip nice and easily. That is due to the cerebellum. These portion here, this is part of your spinal cord, but you have your pons and your medulla. And those are just extensions of the spinal cord. So your medulla also has to do with a little bit of aggression, but also has something to do with your body functions such as your breathing and also your body temperature and regulation. This portion right here, this mid portion, is your corpus callosum. This is actually a structure that actually has neurons running from both sides of the hemispheres. So connection between this hemisphere and that hemisphere is due to the corpus callosum. It's just a bunch of neurons running back and forth that helps both hemispheres communicate with one another. This little groove in between here is actually the ventricle, and it's actually the lateral ventricle. This ventricle is actually for cerebral spinal fluid to flow within the brain. The brain actually sits in cerebral spinal fluid to allow for cushioning. So your brain does not have any pain receptors. Like if I were to hit your arm, you would feel it, but as for your brain, it does not have pain receptors. So it has to be able to cushion itself just in case it gets hit or you fall. It has some type of protection around it. Remember, the only thing in between the skull and the brain is the dura mater and the cerebral spinal fluid. So the fluid has to act as a cushion, and the fluid actually goes through 4 different ventricles. You have 2 lateral ventricles, and then you have a 3rd and 4th ventricle that's going to be around the spinal cord, and it's going to flow all the way down the spinal cord and up through and back up to the brain. With spinal fluid, we're able to test for, if we are to do a spinal tap, we can see if we can draw a little bit of the fluid off the spinal column or out of the brain to see if it has a different color. If there's a different color, we know that there's a type of infection, and we can treat it that way. So that's why we do spinal taps. So going forward, so in this portion here, you see that it's a little bit of a whiter tint, and that's the white matter. And then this that's over here, that's a little bit contrasted, it's going to be your gray matter. Your white matter is going to have neurons that have myelin sheaths on it, versus your gray matter is going to have no myelin sheaths, and so they're going to be a little bit more translucent. So with myelin sheaths, we know that it helps conduct nerve impulses a lot quicker. So for most people who have multiple sclerosis, actually have a disorder where it starts to, the myelin sheaths deteriorate, and they don't allow for the neurons to transmit those signals as well. And so you start seeing them kind of tremor because their muscles are not getting the proper signals at the proper times or able to fine tune it, and that's due to those myelin sheaths. So going forward, so this is the base that's going to go to the spinal cord. There's your corpus callosum. So this region of the brain is going to be the temporal region of your brain. This is going to be responsible for your auditory responses. So this is also going to be where speech is found and also where speech is interpreted. Your frontal lobes, which is going to be at the very front, also where the frontal bone is. This is going to be for your thinking and cognitive processes. This is what's going to allow you to think, make decisions. The bigger this region is, the more cognitive that you are. So our frontal cortex is a pretty decent size. It's a lot bigger than a sheep's, of course. Your parietals are going to be for all your senses. This could be touch, feeling, things of that nature, and integration. Your occipital is going to be for your eyes. This is where your vision is going to be located. This is the portion of your brain that interprets what your eyes are seeing. Your eyes are literally just windows, and so your brain is actually having to not only understand what's happening, but it also has to flip the vision that your eyes are seeing. Your eyes are actually seeing upside down, and so your brain has to flip it back and reverse it so that you can actually see what it actually looks like. There's also, which you probably can't really tell in this region here, but there's a blood-brain barrier. There's a region of the brain where blood cannot cross. Only the nutrients or the ions are allowed to cross over. Nothing else but those are allowed to cross. This also keeps out toxins. But we do know that there are some things that do cross this barrier, and that is such things such as alcohol, or there are some toxins, and there's some medicines that will cross the blood-brain barrier. So if you notice here, you see that there's a lot of, actually still see a little bit of blood that is here. But however here, after this portion here, there are no more blood vessels. It is all strictly just neurons. So, I hope you learned something new, and we'll see you next time.